Alex's wrists were burning, rubbed raw from the silver-threaded ropes that bound them behind her back. Her knees buckled every time the guards dragged her forward, forcing her through the dense forest path that reeked of moss, blood, and something animalistic she couldn't name. She had no idea how long she had been walking, days maybe, since they took her from the outskirts of town, blindfolded and silenced, with nothing but a torn jacket and a scream that never reached anyone. The moon was full tonight. She could feel it in her bones, even before she looked up and saw it, bloated, bright, and watching. The wolves were always stronger on nights like this. The territory gates loomed ahead, thick wood reinforced with iron, markings carved deep into the grain that pulsed faintly with some kind of magic. As they creaked open, the guards spoke to each other in low, guttural tones, none of which she understood. But she knew what she was. Human.
Prey.
And she knew what she'd become here. Nothing. A cage waited for her just past the edge of the main camp. Crude, cold, unforgiving. The guards tossed her in with no ceremony, laughing as she hit the ground with a choked breath. Her arms screamed in protest as she landed hard on her side, and before she could roll over or even open her mouth to beg for something, anything, they were gone. She heard the bolt slide into place. She was alone.
No.
Not alone.
Eyes.
From the shadows, she could feel them. Dozens, maybe more, watching. Assessing. Wolves in human skin, their scent thick in the air, their presence oppressive. She felt her heartbeat thunder against her chest. And then everything went still. The crowd parted without a word. Boots approached.
Precise. Slow.
Commanding. A woman stepped into the clearing. Not just any woman, the woman. The one every whisper was about. The Alpha.
Kira.
She was tall, built like a warrior goddess sculpted in obsidian. Her dark hair pulled back tight, her shoulders squared, and her eyes, God, her eyes. Icy blue, almost inhuman, and burning with something deeper than fury. Alex's breath caught the moment their gazes met. Not because of fear, though she felt it, but because something inside her chest cracked open under that stare.
Kira didn't speak.
She stepped closer to the cage, her scent hitting Alex like a wave. Intoxicating, wild, ancient. Her fingers, adorned with metal rings etched in runes, curled around the bars. You, she said. Her voice was low, lethal. What's your name? Alex swallowed. Her mouth was dry, her body trembling. She wanted to look away, but couldn't. Alex. Kira tilted her head slightly. You're not what I expected. Am I supposed to care? The words were out before Alex could stop them. Stupid. So stupid. The guard stiffened. One even stepped forward, but Kira raised a single hand. Silence. And then, was that a smirk? The edge of her lip curved just slightly, like the barest twitch of amusement. You're brave. Or foolish. Maybe both. I'm not afraid of you, Alex lied. Kira's eyes darkened. She leaned in closer to the bars, and when she spoke again, her voice was soft.
Deadly.
You should be. Alex flinched, but behind the steel and ice in Kira's eyes, there was something else. A flicker. A spark. And Kira felt it too, because she drew back like she'd been burned, staring at Alex like she was seeing something impossible. Something forbidden. She turned to one of the guards. Take her to the stone chamber. Alone. Alpha, she's... Do it, Kira snapped. No one disobeyed. Minutes later, Alex was dragged again, this time into the heart of the Alpha's den. Stone walls. Torches. The scent of wolf fur and old earth. She was thrown into a room that looked more like a ritual hall than a prison, but the chains hanging from the walls said otherwise. She barely had time to breathe before Kira entered again, this time alone. She didn't speak at first, just stared, then slowly circled Alex, eyes scanning every inch, like she was unraveling a puzzle no one else could see. You feel it too, Kira said finally.
Her voice had changed.
Still strong, but quieter, rougher. I don't know what you're talking about, Alex whispered. Kira stepped closer. Too close. Yes, you do. Her hand reached out, but stopped just before touching Alex's cheek. This shouldn't be happening. Not with a human. Not like this. What is this?
Bonding.
That one word made Alex shiver. You're lying. I wish I were. Kira's expression shifted. For the first time, her mask cracked, revealing something raw, vulnerable, and barely restrained. You're my mate. Silence. Alex stared at her, disbelieving, terrified, and confused, because despite the fear, despite the danger, her body was reacting to Kira's presence in a way she couldn't control. Her breath, her pulse, the heat under her skin. You're insane, Alex whispered. Kira's jaw clenched. Maybe, but you feel it too. That pull, that ache. She finally touched Alex's cheek, featherlight, reverent. You don't have to decide now. But know this, little human. You're not a prisoner anymore. You're something far more dangerous. You're mine. Alex didn't sleep. Couldn't. Even when the stone chamber fell silent and the torchlight dimmed, her body refused to let go of the tension coiled deep in her core. Her wrists were unbound, but the phantom pressure of the ropes remained. Her muscles ached, her mind was a storm, and every time she closed her eyes, she saw Kira, those sharp, glacial eyes, that unwavering strength, the way her voice dropped when she said mine. The word echoed like a brand across her skin. She hated how it made her shiver. At some point during the endless dark, the door creaked open again. Alex sat up fast, ready to fight or flee, though she knew neither would end well.
But it wasn't a guard this time.
It was her.
Kira.
No armor now. No show of dominance. She wore a simple black tunic, her hair down in waves around her shoulders, and the soft flicker of torchlight made her look almost human. Almost. Alex stood, keeping her distance. Come to chain me again? Kira didn't flinch. No chains. No guards. Just me. That's supposed to make me feel safe?
No.
It's supposed to make you feel seen. The room felt smaller now, the air thickening with something Alex couldn't name. She hated how her heart betrayed her, how it leapt at the sight of Kira, how her body responded to the scent of her, that earthy wild musk that no perfume could ever imitate. You said I'm your mate, Alex said slowly, like the word itself might crumble if she said it too loud. What does that mean? Kira exhaled, moving to lean against the far wall, her posture more vulnerable than before. It means that out of all the souls in the world, human or wolf, you're the one who completes mine. The one I was created to find. Alex laughed, bitter and hard. Sounds like a curse. Sometimes it is. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Something ancient. Unspoken. Kira looked away first, jaw tight. I didn't ask for this either, Alex. Then let me go. I can't. Why not? Because now that I've found you, everything in me demands I protect you. Even if you hate me. Even if you run. Alex's breath caught. She didn't want to feel this pull, this ache in her chest that responded to Kira's voice, to her presence. She wanted to cling to her anger, her fear, her stubborn will to resist. But something deeper, primal and undeniable, was waking. Kira stepped closer. There are things you don't understand yet. About this place.
About me.
Then explain it. Kira hesitated. Then, slowly, she extended her hand. Not to touch, but to offer. Walk with me. Just for tonight. Alex stared at the outstretched hand. Every instinct screamed no, but her feet betrayed her. She moved. She took it. The night air outside the stone chamber was colder than she expected, crisp and alive with the sounds of the wild. Kira led her through a narrow trail lit only by moonlight and scattered torches, deep into the forested edge of the territory. The howls of wolves echoed in the distance, not threatening, but layered, harmonic, like a song. They're singing to the moon, Kira said, noticing her glance. Alex crossed her arms. Do they always do that? Only when something changes. When the bond shifts. Tonight, they feel you. Great, Alex muttered. So, I'm a freak show and a mating complication. Kira stopped walking. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Don't ever call yourself that again. Alex blinked. Why do you care? Because if you weren't human, if you were wolf, they'd already be preparing the union ceremony. Alex backed away a step. You're talking like this is some kind of destiny. It is. And it's also politics. The council won't accept you. They'll see you as a threat to bloodlines, to tradition. So send me back. They'd kill you before you reach the border. Silence fell heavy between them. For the first time, Alex realized just how trapped she really was, not just by guards and walls, but by something much older, much deeper. I didn't choose this, she whispered. Neither did I, Kira said. But that doesn't mean I won't fight for it. Alex turned away, trying to breathe through the storm inside her. She felt Kira behind her, close, but not touching. The heat of her presence was maddening. You say I'm yours, Alex said finally. But do you even know who I am? Kira's voice softened. Not yet.
But I want to.
Alex turned slowly, and their eyes locked again. The distance between them crackled with something alive, something dangerous. Kira raised a hand, fingers brushing a stray lock of hair from Alex's cheek. The touch was featherlight, reverent. And Alex didn't pull away. Kira's lips parted, as if to say something more. But before she could, a sharp howl cut through the air. Urgent. Alarmed. Kira froze. Trouble. What kind of trouble? But Kira was already shifting, her entire body tense, alert. Stay here. Kira, but she was gone in a blur of motion, leaving only the scent of wild earth behind. Alex stood alone in the clearing, heart racing, throat tight. And for the first time since her capture, she didn't feel like a prisoner. She felt like she had been claimed by something far more dangerous than chains. And maybe part of her wanted to be. The silence that followed Kira's disappearance was louder than any scream. Alex stood frozen in the moonlight, her breath catching in her throat, ears straining to catch the sound of returning footsteps, but all she heard were distant howls, echoing like drums of war from the deeper forest. She didn't know how long she waited, tense and trembling, heart thudding like a trapped bird in her chest, but eventually 2 guards emerged from the trees, not Kira. Their expressions were cold, unreadable. One of them gestured sharply, and before Alex could ask or resist, they took her by the arms, not violently, but with enough force to remind her that she was still a captive. Not a guest, not a mate. They brought her to a different building this time, stone like the others, but smaller, more isolated, and heavily guarded. When she stepped inside, she immediately understood why. It wasn't a prison. It was a cage made to look like a room, complete with a bed, a small table, a basin of water, but no windows, no way out. She was being hidden. Or protected. Maybe both. She paced the room for hours, fury and confusion twisting in her chest. Why had Kira left her here? Why hadn't she returned? Was the danger so great she couldn't spare a moment to explain? Or had the Alpha decided that the human girl she'd claimed as a mate was too much trouble after all? When the door finally opened again, Alex expected Kira. But it wasn't her. It was someone taller, broader, with hard eyes and an arrogant smirk carved deep into his face. He didn't walk in, he prowled, his every step calculated. So this is the reason our Alpha's been distracted, he said, voice smooth and mocking. I expected more. Who the hell are you? Alex snapped, backing away instinctively. Lucan, he replied simply, as if the name should mean something. Beta of this pack. And soon, perhaps more. If you're here to threaten me, get in line. Lucan chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. I'm not here to hurt you, human. Hurting you would hurt her, and we can't have that yet. I'm here because you're a problem. A weakness. And our Alpha doesn't have the luxury of weaknesses. She doesn't see it that way.
No.
But she will. When the council turns on her. When tradition demands she chooses a wolf. You'll be cast out or worse. That's how this ends. Not with mating. With blood. He stepped closer. Too close. Love what you've seen so far and want to help me keep creating these awesome stories on this channel? Then subscribe and hit the bell. Your subscription supports the channel and makes sure you get more exciting stories. Alex met his stare without flinching. If you think I'm afraid of you, you don't know a damn thing about me. I know enough, he said, then turned and walked out without another word. Alex stood there, trembling with rage and unease, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Minutes passed.
Hours.
Eventually exhaustion claimed her, dragging her into a restless sleep haunted by blue eyes and blood-stained forests. The next day or night, she wasn't sure, a different wolf entered. A woman, older, silver streaking her braids, her face lined with age and authority. She said nothing at first, simply observed Alex, as if measuring her soul. You don't belong here, she said finally. Not among us. Not beside her. I didn't ask to be here, Alex replied. Then reject the bond. Free her. I can't, Alex admitted, voice cracking. Even if I wanted to, something inside me won't let go. The woman nodded slowly, as if that was the answer she expected. Then may the gods have mercy on both of you. And she left. Time blurred. Alex didn't know how many days passed in isolation. She wasn't mistreated. Food came regularly and no one laid a hand on her. But the silence was its own kind of torture. She ached for answers. For Kira. For touch. Then, finally, the door opened again, and this time it was her. Kira looked different.
Worn.
Battle-weary. Her eyes were shadowed, her posture tight with restraint. But the moment their eyes met, something soft cracked beneath that iron shell. Alex stood slowly, emotion crashing over her in waves, relief, frustration, longing. You left me, she said. I came back, Kira replied. Not soon enough. Kira stepped inside, closing the door behind her. The council has met. They've challenged my claim. Because of me? Because you're human. Because they're afraid of what I feel for you. They see it as a weakness, a disease. And what do you see it as? Kira crossed the room in 2 steps. Her hands cupped Alex's face, rough and gentle at once. A fire I would burn the world for. Alex's breath hitched. She wanted to pull away. She wanted to fall into her. Then why do I still feel like I'm in a cage? Because they don't trust you. They think you'll break the bond. That you'll make me soft. Well, Kira's forehead rested against hers, their breath mingling. You already have. And I don't care. The distance between them collapsed. Their lips met, brief, searing, filled with everything unsaid. When they pulled apart, Kira's eyes burned with something wild. The council is demanding I prove my loyalty to the pack. They want a show of strength. What kind of show? Kira hesitated. They want me to hunt. You're always hunting.
No.
This time they want me to spill blood. To kill a threat. To prove the human hasn't made me soft. Who's the target? You. The word hung in the air like smoke. Alex's knees nearly gave out. They want you to kill me? They want me to choose. And I won't. Then they'll take you down. Kira's smile was slow. Feral. Let them try. What happens now? Alex whispered. Kira touched her cheek again, more gently this time. Now we stop pretending this is simple. We fight. Together. But I need you to trust me. Even when everything turns against us. Alex stared into those eyes that once terrified her and now pulled her like gravity. Then start by taking me out of this room. Kira stepped back and offered her hand. Come with me, Alex. No more cages. No more hiding. And this time, Alex didn't hesitate. She took her hand. Alex barely recognized the territory by daylight. What had once felt like a prison bathed in moonlight now stood exposed under the sun, all stone and sharpened edges, wolves in human skin watching her every move with a mix of disgust, curiosity, and something darker. Kira walked beside her, straight-backed and unreadable, flanked by 2 silent guards. The moment they stepped into the heart of the village, the circle of stone where judgment was passed and law was spoken, all conversation ceased. Dozens of wolves stood watching.
Eyes. Teeth.
Tension. The council waited at the far end, seated beneath carved totems that rose like gods over them. Lucan stood nearby, arms crossed, a smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. Kira released Alex's hand, but not before giving her one last glance. "You're not alone," that look said. But Alex had never felt more alone in her life. One of the elders rose. "Alpha Kira, the council calls you before the pact to answer for your defiance." Kira didn't flinch. "I am the Alpha. I answer only to the bond and the blood." "Then you acknowledge the human as your mate." "I do." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Disbelief. Outrage. One of the younger council members leaned forward. "You dishonor centuries of tradition. You weaken the bloodline." Kira's voice rang like a blade. "What I feel for her strengthens me." Lucan stepped forward. "Then prove it. Let the human face the trials. If she survives, she stays. If not, the bond is broken." Alex's heart stopped. "Trials?" Kira growled low, stepping between them. "She's not one of us." "And that is exactly the problem," Lucan said smoothly. "She can't be part of the pack if she can't endure what we endure. Unless, of course, you want to protect her like a pup." Kira's fists clenched. Alex stepped forward before she could speak. "I'll do it." Kira turned, shocked. "No." "Yes," Alex said firmly. "Let me fight. Let me earn it." The council murmured again, surprised by the defiance in her voice. The oldest elder nodded. Then the trials began at moonrise. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Alex was stripped of anything that might offer comfort. No food, no water, no guidance. Kira tried to see her, but was denied. No outside influence, the guards barked. Alone in a small wooden shelter on the edge of the woods, Alex paced like a caged animal, her body screaming with nerves, her mind spiraling. She wasn't strong. She wasn't trained. She was human. And yet, the fire in her chest, the pull toward Kira, the weight of the bond, burned too hot to ignore. She would not be discarded. Not by them. Not by fate. Not by Kira. When the moon rose, she was led into the forest. No path. No light. Just trees and the sound of distant howls. A figure waited at the start of the trial path. Kira. Her face was hard, but her eyes were drowning in fear. "You shouldn't be doing this," she said quietly. "Then stop me." "You know I can't." Alex reached out, touching her wrist. "Then don't look away." Kira swallowed hard. "I won't." The first trial was a hunt, not for prey, but for survival. She was chased, not by beasts, but by wolves in half-form, claws out, eyes gleaming. Alex ran like she never had before. Fell. Bled. Got back up. Her lungs burned, but her will blazed hotter. She tricked one pursuer into a trap, rolled under a fallen tree to escape another. She didn't win, but she didn't die. That was enough. The second trial was endurance. Hours bound to stone, exposed to the elements, forced to remain silent while the council watched from the shadows. She trembled. She cried. But not once did she beg. Not once did she speak. Kira wasn't allowed near, but she was watching. Alex could feel her, that presence like thunder in her chest. The third trial was the worst. A final confrontation. A wolf was released into the clearing. Massive. Rabid. A test of fear. She was given a blade. Small. Laughable. Useless. But when the creature charged, something inside her snapped. Not panic. Not instinct. Something older. She screamed, not in fear, but in fury, and dodged the first attack. The second. She slashed its side. The beast lunged again, knocking her flat, but before it could sink its teeth into her throat, a blur of black slammed into it. Kira. In wolf form. Glorious. Terrifying. She tore into the beast with feral rage, forcing it to retreat, bloodied and broken. The council rose in fury. She intervened. She broke the law. Kira shifted back mid-stride, panting, bare under the moonlight but unashamed. She would have died. Then she failed. No, Kira said. She survived. Alex, broken and bruised, rose to her knees. Isn't that what your pack is built on? The council fell into silence. Lucan stepped forward, voice calm. This is chaos. No, Kira growled, stepping protectively in front of Alex. This is evolution. The air in the council chamber was thick with fury, judgment, and the sharp scent of blood that still clung to Kira's skin. She stood alone in the center of the stone circle, bare from the shift, her body covered only by a cloak hastily thrown over her shoulders. Her hair was matted with sweat and battle, her jaw locked in defiance. The elders sat in silence, staring down at her like vultures deciding when to feast. Lucan stood just behind them, arms crossed, the smirk never leaving his face. You defied the trial's rules, the High Elder intoned. You interfered. You saved her. She's my mate, Kira said, voice low and steady. You knew what would happen if you intervened. I also knew she would die if I didn't. Then she failed. She survived. She cheated death because you carried her through it. She endured more than any wolf we've ever tested, Kira snapped. She faced death alone until the final moment. That moment is all that matters. Then your laws are broken, not her. The room exploded into arguments, overlapping growls and snarls, as voices shouted their positions. Kira stood still in the center of it, a single flame refusing to flicker. Lucan finally raised a hand, and the chaos fell quiet. The pack needs strength, he said calmly. What it does not need is an alpha who places one human girl above her entire bloodline. You want my seat, Kira said flatly. I want our survival. You want power. And you've given me the perfect reason to take it. The High Elder lifted a hand. Enough. The council will vote tomorrow at dusk. Until then, Alpha Kira is suspended of her command. Lucan will act in her place. Kira's jaw flexed, but she said nothing. There was no point in arguing further.
For now.
She turned without a word and left the chamber, her cloak trailing behind her like a shadow. Meanwhile, Alex lay unconscious in the healer's hut, her body trembling with fever, her skin pale and slick with sweat. The wounds from the trials had festered quickly, more than they should have, as if something inside her was rebelling against the healing. The old healer muttered to herself as she dabbed at the fevered girl's forehead. Too much magic, she whispered. Too much ancient blood. She shouldn't even be alive. Alex's dreams were thick and strange. She floated through forests where the moon bled silver, where trees whispered her name in voices she didn't recognize. She saw visions of wolves bowing before her, of fire erupting from her palms, of Kira on her knees with tears in her eyes, whispering, "It was always you." And behind it all, a presence watched. Not cruel, not kind, something older, waiting. When she gasped awake, her body convulsed, eyes glowing faintly gold for a heartbeat before dimming. The healer dropped her cloth. Goddess above, hours later, Kira stood at her bedside, eyes fixed on Alex's face, as if trying to memorize her features. She hadn't spoken since returning. Not even to the healer. Just watched. Her hands hovered above Alex's cheek, but never touched. She was terrified she might break her. Finally, Alex stirred, eyes blinking open slowly. "You're here," she rasped. Kira nodded. "Always." "Did I pass?" Kira laughed once, bitter. "You did, but I failed. They're going to take you down. Let them try." Alex reached up, her fingers trembling, brushing against Kira's. "I saw things, Kira. In the dark. In my sleep."
Kira tensed.
"What kind of things?" "Power. Fire.
You."
On your knees. Crying." Kira went still. "That's impossible. Something is inside me. Something old. I don't think I'm just human."
No.
"You never were." Kira stood and began to pace. "I've read the scrolls. There are stories, ancient ones, of soulmates born from outside the bloodline. From before the divide. From when wolves and humans weren't enemies. You might be something lost. Something sacred. And that scares them. It terrifies them. Good. Kira turned back, eyes wild with love and desperation. I don't care what you are, Alex. I only care that you're mine. Alex pulled her hand weakly to Kira's cheek. Then don't let them take you from me. Kira leaned in slowly, lips brushing her forehead. Never. Outside the healer's hut, Lucan watched through the trees, eyes narrowed. So, he muttered, the girl's waking up. Just in time to watch me rip her alpha apart. He turned to the shadow beside him. Make sure they don't reach the council hall tomorrow. If Kira shows her face at the vote, kill her. The forest was unnaturally quiet as Kira moved through it, every step a warning, every sound a threat cloaked in silence, her instincts prickling like a storm gathering under her skin, and though she had been summoned to her own judgment, stripped of her title and command, she knew this was not a trial. This was a trap, an execution dressed as tradition, and the moment the wind shifted, she smelled it. Blood, steel, wolves. And her body reacted before thought could catch up, her form shifting mid-stride, bones cracking, muscles stretching as fur erupted along her limbs, the alpha within refusing to die quietly, and as the blade sliced through the space she had just vacated, she landed in the clearing in full wolf form, snarling, furious, ancient, only to find herself surrounded by 3 of Lucan's loyalists, their eyes gleaming with betrayal, their claws dripping with the promise of mutiny. And without hesitation, she lunged at the nearest, tearing into his shoulder and sending him to the ground. But the other 2 were faster than she expected, blades slashing her flanks, hot blood blooming across her side as she rolled and shifted back into human form mid-fight, catching a fallen dagger and swinging hard, her blade carving open a throat with lethal precision. But the fight wasn't over, and the next attacker slammed her against a tree with brutal force, breath leaving her lungs in a gasp as her vision went white, her ears ringing with pain and rage, and yet she refused to break, ducking under his second swing and driving her dagger deep into his gut, leaving only one, who circled her slowly, a twisted grin on his face as he said, "You're not alpha anymore, you're just a woman." To which she spat blood and answered, "Then why are you still afraid of me?" Before charging straight at him without mercy. Miles away, Alex woke with a breath that felt like fire, her body drenched in sweat, her heart racing with a terror that wasn't hers, but Kira's, and though her limbs trembled and her skin burned with fever, she knew Kira was in danger, and worse, she knew exactly where, as if something invisible tethered them, pulling her forward with each panicked heartbeat, so she forced herself to stand, pain slicing through her with every movement. But she didn't care, didn't stop, couldn't, because Kira was hurting, and she would not let her die alone in the woods while wolves plotted her death. And though the healer tried to hold her back, Alex's voice cracked with power as she said, "She's dying, I feel her." And then she was gone, barefoot and unsteady, but driven by something deeper than instinct, by bond, by fate, by fire. Her body weak, but her soul alight with something ancient, something pulsing beneath her skin like a second heartbeat. And as she stumbled through the forest, the world seemed to tilt, the trees leaning in, the wind carrying whispers only she could hear, voices older than language, calling her forward, guiding her to the clearing where Kira fought for her life. And then she saw her. Kira, bloodied, on her knees, her breath ragged, one final attacker circling with a dagger gleaming, ready to strike, and everything inside Alex exploded. She didn't scream. She didn't hesitate. She raised a hand that trembled with exhaustion, and the air around her shimmered like heat on stone, light blooming from her palm in a surge of white gold energy that cracked like lightning as it slammed into the attacker, hurling him backwards with a force that split the earth beneath him. Kira stared, stunned, too hurt to move, too awestruck to speak, as Alex stepped into the clearing like a vision from a myth, her body fragile, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light, her hair whipping around her face as the forest bent to her presence, the air itself thick with energy, and when she dropped to her knees beside Kira, it was like the world stopped breathing. "You came," Kira whispered, voice shaking with awe. You think I'd let them take you from me? Alex replied, her voice no longer just her own. It echoed, layered with something older, something beyond her, and as she touched Kira's cheek, the bond between them erupted in full, a wave of energy pulsing from their skin like a shockwave, the ground quaking beneath them, birds screaming into the sky as wolves across the territory collapsed to their knees, hands over their chests, gasping for air. The bond was awake, not just claimed, not just felt, but seen, recognized, ancient, elemental. Alex swayed, the power fading as quickly as it had come, her eyes dimming back to human, and then she collapsed into Kira's arms, breath shallow but alive. Kira held her close, arms wrapped tight, blood mixing with sweat, with dirt, with something sacred, and when she looked down at Alex's face, she didn't see a human, or a weakness, or a mistake. She saw destiny. Moments later, Lucan appeared at the edge of the trees, sword drawn, breath sharp, ready to finish what he had started, but the sight before him stopped him cold. The burnt clearing, the dead wolves, Alex glowing faintly with residual energy, and Kira standing tall despite her wounds, her eyes locked on him with a fury that could end dynasties, and when she spoke, her voice was cold steel. Try to touch her again, she said, and I will erase your name from this pack's history.
Lucan hesitated.
Just for a second. Then he turned and disappeared back into the woods, leaving only silence in his wake. Kira looked down at Alex again, brushing a lock of hair from her face. What are you? She whispered. But the answer was already in her heart. Alex wasn't just a mate. She was a beginning, or an end. They left before dawn, the sky still cloaked in deep indigo as the stars dimmed one by one, and Kira moved with silent urgency through the lower forest trails, her arms wrapped around Alex's weakened frame, her wounds still raw, her muscles burning, but the pain dulled beneath the steady roar of instinct that screamed she was running out of time, not just because the council had turned against them, but because something ancient had awakened in Alex, something the wolves would fear, and if they didn't reach the Circulo Ancestral before the pack caught them, there would be no mercy left in the world, only fire and blood and loss, and Alex stirred in her arms, whispering hoarsely, "They're coming," and Kira only nodded, because she knew Lucan would not wait. He would twist the truth into fear, call for a hunt, mark them both as traitors to the bloodline, and the pack would follow, blind to what Alex really was. Blind to the old power rising again through flesh and earth, so Kira pushed deeper into the forest, through tangled roots and low fog, passing landmarks few wolves remembered, trees older than their bloodline, and the farther they went, the more the forest changed, the trees growing taller, older, the light dimmer even as the sun began to rise, and when they reached the river that shimmered with moonlight even in morning, Kira waded through it without hesitation, cradling Alex closer, feeling the hum of magic through the water as they passed, a blessing or a warning. She couldn't tell, and when the arch of trees appeared, twisted and black, shaped by time and untouched by man, she paused for the first time, her breath catching as the weight of generations pressed down on her shoulders, because no wolf had entered the Circulo in 2 centuries, not since the last seer fell silent. But then Alex, barely conscious, reached out and brushed her fingers against the bark, and the trees opened without sound, without resistance, as if they'd been waiting, and inside was silence, not emptiness, but reverence, the kind of silence that listens, that remembers, and at the center of the ring of trees stood a stone pedestal carved with symbols lost to time, and Kira laid Alex down beside it, falling to her knees, her voice low. "We seek answers, we seek truth," and for a moment, nothing happened, until Alex gasped and her body arched as golden light burst from her chest, the pedestal lighting up with runes that hadn't glowed in hundreds of years, and the ground trembled as a wind rose from beneath the soil, swirling around her in glowing dust, and Kira could only stare, frozen in awe, as Alex opened her eyes, no longer human, not quite wolf, molten gold and full of memory she hadn't lived, her voice layered with something older as she whispered, "You brought me back," and Kira whispered, "Who are you?" And Alex said, "I don't know yet, but I was never meant to sleep." And the forest whispered one word through the trees, not in their tongue but in their bones. Chosen and far away, atop the central watchtower, Lucan watched smoke trails in the east and knew, with cruel certainty, where they had gone, and when the scout returned with confirmation, Lucan gave the order without hesitation, "Burn it." And though one warrior hesitated, whispering, "But the circulo is sacred," Lucan only said, "Then let it die with them." And back in the sacred grove, Kira sat beside Alex, the morning light filtering through the ancient branches, her hands bloodied, her heart still racing from fear she refused to name, and though Alex had fallen still, her breath slow, her power was not gone. It vibrated through the soil, through the stone, through Kira's bones, and she whispered, "I don't know what you are, but I will follow you." And for the first time in her life, the Alpha was not leading. She was choosing to kneel beside something greater, something terrifying, something that had her heart in its hands and the future of the pack trembling in its shadow. And then the scent of smoke reached them through the trees, sharp and bitter, and the drums of war began to beat in the distance. The first arrow struck the outer trees with a hiss, embedding itself into the ancient bark that had not been pierced in centuries, and as it began to burn, the air inside the circulo shifted, the silence twisting into tension, the calm before a storm unraveling thread by thread, and Kira stood immediately, her senses igniting like lightning through her skin, eyes narrowed toward the smoke rising beyond the trees, her hand going to the blade at her side, though she knew it wouldn't be enough, not against a full war party led by Lucan, and behind her, Alex still lay motionless, glowing faintly, her breath slow but steady, her skin damp with the aftermath of something sacred stirring beneath her ribs, something not meant to be touched or controlled. And Kira turned toward her, heart thundering, knowing they couldn't wait, couldn't hide, not here, not anymore. So she crouched beside her and whispered, "Alex, you need to wake up." But there was no response, only the hum of power in the air. The feel of magic coiled like a beast ready to strike, and Kira took her hand, pressed her forehead to it, and said, "I can't protect this place without you." And then the second wave hit, the first flames licking through the sacred roots, the old grove crackling as fire met ancient wood, and wolves burst through the tree line, snarling, half-shifted, blades drawn, their eyes wild with zealotry, and at their head was Lucan, his armor blackened, his eyes cold and triumphant as he pointed straight at Kira and roared, "Kill the traitor!" And everything exploded into motion, Kira moving like a storm, blades clashing, claws ripping, teeth bared, every muscle burning as she fought not to win, but to buy time, to hold them back long enough for Alex to open her eyes, to breathe, to rise. But the warriors came in waves, and even Kira's rage had limits, blood pouring down her arm, a gash torn across her ribs, and still she stood, her back against the pedestal, her legs shaking, refusing to fall, and Lucan stepped forward, shoving his warriors aside, blade in hand, voice low and venomous as he said, "You could have had everything, but you chose her." And Kira smiled through bloodied lips and whispered, "And I'd choose her again." And Lucan raised his sword and struck, but the blade never landed, because in that moment, Alex's eyes snapped open, gold erupting in her gaze, her body lifting from the ground in a burst of white-hot light that sent a shockwave through the clearing, throwing Lucan back like a ragdoll, wolves howling in pain as the energy burned through them, and Alex rose, feet no longer touching the earth, her hair floating, her voice not her own but layered with echoes of something divine as she said, "You desecrate what was sacred," and the flames that had been devouring the grove recoiled, pulled inward, reshaped by her will into a spiraling column of fire that bent around her like a living shield, and she stepped forward, the pedestal cracking behind her, the trees groaning, the air itself warping as the power inside her unfurled, and Lucan scrambled to his feet, eyes wide for the first time, and shouted, "She's not one of us." But even he sounded unsure now, afraid, and Kira, breathless, bleeding, looked up at the woman she loved and said, "Alex." And Alex turned toward her, eyes softening, voice her own again as she said, "I remember," and Kira reached for her. But before she could touch her, Alex stepped past, her hand raised toward Lucan, not in anger, but in judgment, and he screamed. As the fire curved toward him, surrounding him, forcing him to his knees without burning his skin, only showing him his fear, his weakness, his lies, and Alex spoke, voice steady. "You are not my enemy, Lucan, but you are no alpha," and she lowered her hand, the fire vanishing, leaving him sobbing in the dirt, and the warriors who had followed him looked at one another in stunned silence, their weapons lowered, something inside them shaken loose, and one by one, they fell to their knees, not to Lucan, not to Kira, but to Alex, who turned back toward Kira and fell into her arms, the power ebbing, her body trembling, and Kira held her like she would never let go, the scent of smoke thick around them, the grove blackened but alive, and in that silence, the wolves bowed, and a new era began to take shape beneath their feet. The grove was silent in the aftermath of fire and fury, the smoke curling slowly into the morning sky as the wolves remained kneeling, eyes fixed on the figure who now stood at the center of the scorched circle, her skin glowing faintly as if the very essence of the land still pulsed beneath it, and Kira held Alex tightly, the adrenaline still roaring through her, her wounds forgotten, her arms trembling not from pain but from awe and terror, because what had just happened defied everything she had ever known, and yet she felt no fear of Alex, only for her, for the weight now pressing down on her shoulders, for the uncertainty blooming in her golden gaze, and when Alex finally looked around, breathing slowly, blinking as if waking from a long dream, the wolves rose slowly, confused, reverent, lost, and Kira helped her stand, whispering, "We need to leave before they change their minds," and Alex nodded, silent, her mind distant, already turning inward as the first flickers of memory stirred beneath her skin like whispers in blood, and they walked together out of the circulo, leaving behind the broken pedestal, the blackened roots, and the legacy of something ancient reawakened, and as they moved deeper into the forest, silence followed them, not out of peace, but fear, because some wolves looked at Alex and saw salvation, others saw threat, and more still could not decide which was more dangerous. They stopped at a small spring 2 hours west, hidden between stone and moss, and Kira washed the blood from Alex's hands while neither of them spoke, their gazes meeting only briefly, both too overwhelmed to name what had just happened, and when night fell, they built no fire, letting the darkness settle around them like a shield, and Kira watched Alex as she slept, her brow furrowed even in rest, her fingers twitching against the dirt, and when she jolted awake hours later, breath ragged, Kira was already beside her, arms around her, whispering, "What did you see?" And Alex's voice cracked. "A city of stone, wolves with armor, a throne made of bone. I think I died once, Kira. I think I was buried inside myself." And Kira held her tighter, heart racing, because the stories had always been dismissed as myth, the tale of the flame-born, a soul split by the gods and hidden in human form until the bloodline called it home again, but it had never been more than a warning to keep wolves from loving outside the pack, and now it was real, breathing, tangled in her arms, and Kira whispered, "You're remembering another life," and Alex nodded slowly. "I think I was one of them, before the divide, before the curse," and Kira asked, "What curse?" But Alex only whispered, "The one that made them forget love," and fell back into sleep. The next morning, they were found not by warriors, but by messengers, wolves from different parts of the territory, bearing conflicting truths, one offering sanctuary from a hidden faction who believed Alex was the key to uniting the broken bloodlines, the other demanding surrender in the name of the council, who now labeled Kira and Alex as heretics, their bond a crime against tradition. Kira sent them both away. "Tell them we don't kneel to fear," she said, and as the messengers vanished, Alex stepped beside her, eyes sharper, voice stronger. "They'll come for me, won't they?" And Kira answered without hesitation, "Let them try." But beneath her calm, a storm gathered, because she knew what power could do to a pack. It could inspire or destroy, could bring prophecy or war, and Alex was no longer just her mate. She was a symbol now, and symbols were always hunted. That night, as rain began to fall over their hidden camp, Alex sat by the edge of the rocks and whispered, "There's more inside me, Kira. I can feel it, locked behind something." And Kira joined her, close but not touching, voice low, "Then we'll unlock it together." But Alex turned to her, eyes fierce and scared all at once. "And what if I become something you don't recognize?" And Kira answered without blinking, "Then I'll fall in love with you all over again." And for a long time, neither of them spoke, letting the sound of rain and fate stretch between them, until the wind shifted and they both turned toward the east, where a howl rose into the night, not from the pack, but from something older, something calling, something waiting. The wind howled through the forest like a warning laced in prophecy, the leaves rustling in patterns too precise to be natural, the earth pulsing faintly beneath their feet as if the roots themselves carried memory. And Alex stood at the edge of the cliff with her eyes closed, arms loose at her sides, the sky above her swirling with clouds thick and fast, as though the storm gathering in the world had been pulled from inside her chest. And Kira stood just behind her, watching, waiting, her every breath shallow, because she knew this was the moment everything would change, not just for them, not just for the pack, but for the history that had been written in blood and silence for centuries. And Alex spoke without turning, her voice layered again, both hers and not hers. "It's not just power, Kira, it's a soul, a consciousness. She was trapped inside me, waiting." And Kira asked, low and steady, "Who?" And Alex opened her eyes, now glowing with a depth of gold that shimmered like ancient fire. The first seer, the one who foresaw the fall of the bloodlines, the one they buried beneath myth because they feared her truth. And Kira stepped closer, torn between awe and dread, because she knew what it meant to be a vessel, to carry something not born of you but bonded by fate. And she asked, "Is she taking you?" And Alex finally turned, and there was a softness in her expression, a flicker of the woman Kira had fallen in love with beneath the weight of gods. And she said, "No." She chose me because I could hold her without breaking. And Kira moved, closing the space between them, her hand rising to cup Alex's cheek, her voice trembling. "Then don't break now." And Alex leaned into the touch, her hand covering Kira's. "Not if you stay with me." And far below, at the base of the mountain, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the valley, hundreds of them, armor clinking, blades unsheathed, the banner of the council held high and black with silver runes. And Lucan rode at the front, no longer smug, no longer seeking power for ego, but out of fear, fear of what Alex had become, fear of the truth she carried, fear that everything he'd built would crumble if the pack remembered what they truly were. And Kira heard them before she saw them, her head tilting to the side, her body tensing in silent readiness, and she whispered, "They're here." And Alex nodded slowly, "Then let it end." And together they descended the slope, step by step, their hands linked, their hearts braced for whatever the old world would throw at them. And when they reached the clearing where the pack once gathered for ceremony and challenge, the soldiers were already waiting, blades drawn, bows raised, but no one moved, not yet. And Lucan stepped forward, his voice loud and clear, "You come bearing a curse, not a blessing." And Alex replied, calm and unwavering, "I come bearing memory." And he shouted, "You are not one of us." And she said, "Then why do the roots whisper my name?" And the sky cracked above them, lightning lacing the clouds but not striking, just waiting, listening. And Kira stepped in front of Alex, voice ringing with the authority that had never truly left her. "If you raise your blades now, you do it knowing history will not remember you as warriors, but as cowards who feared change." And the soldiers hesitated, their eyes flicking between Lucan and the two women standing hand in hand beneath a storm that bent toward them. And then the trees began to move, not with wind, but will, as branches groaned and twisted and the forest leaned forward, casting shadows over the army like judgment. And Alex stepped forward, her body surrounded by flickers of light, the same ancient energy that had surged through the sacred grove now flowing through her veins with calm precision. And she spoke not in challenge, but in truth. The bloodlines were broken by fear, by those who believed wolves and humans could not love, could not bond, could not share the same soul, and her voice echoed like a bell across the valley. But I am both. I am the bridge, the proof, the memory they tried to bury, and behind her, the earth cracked slightly, light spilling upward from the soil, and Lucan shouted, "Lies," and charged, blade high, fury wild, but he never reached her because Kira moved faster, intercepting him with a roar. Their blades clashing with a sound like thunder, and they fought like fire and steel, old wounds spilling into new ones, until Kira knocked him to the ground, standing over him with her blade to his throat. And he spat, "She'll destroy us." And Kira said, "No, she'll save what's worth saving," and stepped back, refusing to kill him, and turned to the others, to the wolves who still held their weapons in shaking hands, and Alex raised hers, palm open, eyes glowing, but the energy now soft, calm, steady, and she said, "I won't force you to follow me, but I will not hide," and one by one, the soldiers dropped their blades, kneeling not to power, not to fear, but to the bond they had witnessed, to the truth that had shaken the sky, and Kira exhaled as if breathing for the first time in years, her hand reaching for Alex's, and the two of them stood in the center of the clearing, the storm beginning to break above them, light piercing through clouds and golden rays, and no one spoke for a long time, because there was nothing left to say, only the quiet knowledge that something had ended, and something else had begun, and in the days that followed, the pack changed, slowly, but truly, laws rewritten, stories restored, bloodlines healed not by strength, but by choice, and Alex and Kira became more than a symbol, more than myth. They became the story the children would whisper by moonlight, not of war, but of love that remembered what the world had forgotten. And when they stood once more in the sacred grove, no longer hiding, no longer hunted, Kira turned to Alex and asked, "What now?" And Alex smiled, that soft, human, stubborn smile that had changed everything, and said, "Now we live." Thank you so much for being here and for believing in this channel. If you feel in your heart, you can donate with super thanks so I can focus more and more on this project. Your support helps me keep creating these love stories and bringing them to life for you. See you in the next video.